President Trump has left the G7 summit in Canada early because of the continuing crisis in the Middle East. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt made the announcement Monday evening, saying President Trump is returning to Washington so that he can attend to many important matters. Well, President Trump's exit comes as Israel and Iran attacked each other for a fifth consecutive day. This is the moment Israel struck targets in Tehran, including the state broadcaster. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Iran's security leadership is being eliminated one after another. The Israeli military also released this footage, which it says shows it destroying 2 Iranian fighter jets at Tehran airport, as well as trucks delivering weapons. Meanwhile, President Trump posted on his social media platform Truth Social, saying Iran should have signed his nuclear deal and that everyone should evacuate Tehran. Our diplomatic correspondent James Landell is at the G7 summit and says Mr. Trump's departure will disappoint many of the leaders there, and one in particular.
The fact that President Trump is absent means that there are an awful lot of world leaders who've come here specifically to this summit hoping to get a chance to talk to him, who are now not going to be able to do that. And top of that list will be probably President Zelensky, because he wanted this to be a crucial opportunity to try and encourage Donald Trump to put more pressure on Russia. He thinks the Americans aren't doing that at the moment, and he thought that this might be the context where Donald Trump, listening and having other conversations with other European leaders, could begin to shift his position to say, actually, the Russians clearly aren't moving. We need to think about more sanctions. So instead, there will be a discussion about sanctions today. There's likely to be new announcements of sanctions by some of the European nations and the Canadians, possibly involving discussions about reducing the price of oil that Russia can get for the oil that it's selling on the global markets. But the problem is that one man will not be sat around the table, and that's Donald Trump. And that means that if the Americans are not involved in any of those sanctions discussions or the imposition of them, they inevitably will be weaker. And so that therefore, this will be, as ever, a conversation with one side of this discussion and not all sides, because Mr. Trump will not be around.
Our Middle East correspondent Hugo Bachega is in Jerusalem for us, and bring us update with the very latest on these exchanges of fire between Israel and Iran.
Yeah, Lauren, so it is just after 9 o'clock in the morning here, and sirens sounded again across the country about 20 minutes ago with another wave of Iranian attacks. And at least there's been one reported hit in central Israel. We can't name the location because of the restrictions that have been imposed by the Israeli government on the reporting of these locations hit. But these attacks this morning followed, overnight attacks. There were 2 waves of Iranian missiles as Iran continues to respond to these Israeli airstrikes. And the attacks that happened overnight were less intense than the previous nights. There were no reports of direct hits and no reports of casualties. And this morning in Iran, there have been reports of more explosions in the capital, Tehran, as Israel continues to carry out these attacks. It's very difficult to get a clear picture of what's happening inside Iran. The BBC cannot report from within Iran. But again, the indications that we're getting from the Israeli authorities are that this campaign is likely to continue for quite some time. Last night, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu gave an interview to the Iranian International Television channel. This is a TV channel based in London, so, an attempt here to address parts of the Iranian public. He said Israel had successfully damaged parts of Iran's nuclear and ballistic missiles programs, but that Israeli forces still needed more time in this campaign. So again, suggesting that this campaign is likely to continue for quite some time. And I think, as you've been discussing, a lot of people are waiting to see what President Trump is going to do, whether the Americans are going to get involved in this campaign. We know that the Israelis don't have the kind of bombs needed to strike a key nuclear facility at Fordow. They would need, American support for that. This would mark a significant escalation in this conflict. So that's why a lot of people are, waiting to see what the American decision will be.
Hugo Bachega, thank you very much indeed for that update. Well, let's speak now to Ali Fatollah Nejad, founder and director of the Centre for Middle East and Global Order. He joins me from Berlin. Thanks very much indeed for being with us. What's your interpretation of Mr. Trump's early exit from the G7? The messaging from the US seems to have been that they're not about to go down a military route, but do you think that actually is a possibility?
Well, first of all, his messaging is very clear. He's putting pressure on the Iranian side. He's making clear that if the Islamic Republic, if the war continues, the Islamic Republic is going to lose. So he's talking about the sheer asymmetry of power between the two sides, between Israel and Iran. And in addition, we have some indications that there might be a military buildup from the United States, also underpinned by some of the things that President Trump said. So we cannot, at this point of time, exclude the possibility of the United States entering the war sooner or later. But this, again, primarily, I think this is meant to increase pressure on the Islamic Republic to concede, to actually signal that they are willing for major concessions.
And at the moment, are they willing to make any concessions like that, do you think?
I think there have been signals from regime officials, including the Islamic Republic of Iran's foreign minister, that they're seeking an end of this war because of the military superiority of Israel. This is devastating also for regime stability and survival. So this is also quite clear, I think, from Tehran's perspective. This is why I think they're also interested in ending the war and re-engaging in diplomacy. Yet the great question is what framework, what conditions going to be imposed by the other side, that is the United States, when diplomacy, restarts.
We have seen a number of the missiles coming from Iran getting through the Iron Dome defence system in Israel. How much more capacity do you think Iran has at the moment to keep doing that, to hit within Israel?
I think the only thing that they can do at this moment, and actually since the start of the war, is to do exactly what they've been doing. So launching missiles quite indiscriminately to Israel. On the other side, we've seen since Sunday also that some civilian populated areas of Tehran have been afflicted by Israeli strikes. So there have been civilian casualties as well. This has led also to quite an anger and panic among Tehran's population. And I think that those warnings and threats from Israeli officials, but now by President Trump, centered on Tehran, that Tehran should be evacuated. This is a city of 10 million plus people, which is impossible to evacuate at all, are counterproductive. At the same time, it collides with the expectation that the Iranian people would rise up against the regime. So under the present conditions of war and bomb dropping on them because of the lack of the regime's precautions in order to provide some security, air defenses, shelters and so forth, this is quite illusion to think that under the present conditions people would rise up, because people would need to rise up in Tehran.
Ali Fatullah Nejad, thank you very much indeed for talking to us. Thank you.